Episode 69 of Politically Conscious, Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Was Barack Obama or Donald Trump more divisive, and did one set the stage for the other? Then Joe Rogan pulls out on Trump over ICE and Iran. Is that just one voice or a shift in the country? Plus, we break down the latest steps from Pete Hegseth and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. No spin, no loyalty, just outcomes. If you're tired of the propaganda, listen to us. What's up, everybody? It is episode 69 of Politically Conscious. I don't think this is a sex episode, but that's always the number that indicates that we're going to be talking about sex, but we won't be. We're going to be sticking with politics. We got our man Shelly Winters back in the thing. As Emil called him this week, The Rock is back. So glad to have you back with the Shelly. If you first time listening to the Politically Conscious, at 69 shows, you probably shouldn't be a first time listener at this point. But you definitely should be subscribed to our page because I don't always promote. I didn't get to promote this show as well. But last week we didn't promote and we hit our highest number ever, 3,500 plus watchers, I guess I should say viewers. And so that's pretty cool. Emil, if you will, introduce yourself and then we'll get to our Shelly Winters as well. Keep it short and sweet because I got a lot of cuts today and I want to get y'all in and out on time.
Emil Bryan, I'm a political consultant and author. Right now, I am writing more than consulting, but anytime someone asks me for help, I tell them to tell the truth, tell it early, tell it often, because bad news does not get better with time. And the best way for a voter to vote your way is for them to have the information. So give it to them and give it to them straight.
Again, I always vehemently disagree with you because I think what we're watching right now is people falling for the propaganda, which is why we're here. If you're tired of the propaganda, listen to us. Shelly Winters, I don't know that you need any introduction, but you are the man here in Georgia of the Shelly Winters Show. You are now nationwide, as you can be broadcasted. People can follow you and let people know what you do, how they can follow you. And we're going to start with our first clip.
Yeah, Shelly Winters Show on 95.5 WSB, Atlanta's News and Talk. Excuse me, in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, 95.5. You can listen on your radio dial every night, 7 to 9, or WSBradio.com. You can listen online every night, 7 to 9. You can watch replays of the show. I post clips of my show on Facebook. And so that's where you can see my show, which is really growing. You know, it's interesting. I can say this here because I'm not allowed to say it on radio technically.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a podcast, so it can be said. So in radio, ratings come out every week, and 4 weeks make a month.
Okay.
And 3 months make a quarter. So we're basically generally judged on the quarters.
Okay.
That's how the advertisers they're sold based on the quarters and stuff like that. And so first quarter just came out this past week, and I had the highest number, the highest ranking in the quarter personally that I've ever had for my time slot. But also I also know that I've had the highest ranking for a quarter in that time slot. They haven't seen numbers like that in that time slot since they carried the Braves baseball. Which is so which is like 15, 20 years ago or something like that. So I've been needless to say, 420 weekend, I was higher than 420 weekend. So
yeah, bro.
Hey man, congratulations. Yeah, congratulations on that. So for those that have been asking me, where's Shelly at? He makes the show go. He's busy increasing his ratings on his show, and he fills in the other time slots. So sometimes we miss him when he fills in other time slots. So glad to have you back. Let's get this started with Shelly's favorite person in the administration, if you will.
America's Secretary of Defense is today a global laughingstock after quoting a fake Bible verse. It did not take the press here and around the world very long to figure out that Pete Hegseth was not exactly quoting the Bible at a Pentagon prayer service. It wasn't the Gospel of Matthew or Mark or Luke or John. While Hegseth suggested that it was a twist on an actual Bible verse, what it actually was a take from the Gospel of Quentin Tarantino.
Blessed is he who, in the name of camaraderie and duty, shepherd the lost through the valley of darkness. for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children.
Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children.
I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to capture and destroy my brother.
I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers.
And you will know my call sign is Sandy.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
All right, I want to bore y'all with the entire Bible verse at the prayer meeting. But again, Shelley's favorite person in the administration basically shows how a TV host, as a meritless-based Secretary of Defense, as I continue to call him, Emil, we always let you start, so we'll let you respond to, are we shocked, are we surprised at this point, and why is this the guy heading up not only our military, but we're actually at war right now with this guy as the Secretary of Defense. Your thoughts, bro?
First of all, he's part of what's called the National Command Authority. That's the president and the Secretary of Defense who makes decisions together on behalf of the United States. And this is one of those where we have to ask something we have to ask a question, and that is, was this tongue-in-cheek? And part of the answer is yes, it was. Now, I'll tell you that because if you look at his face, there's a unit that uses that same phrase from the movie, which is what is the movie? I'm sorry, it just fell out of my head.
Fiction.
Pulp Fiction. There's a unit in the Air Force or Army that uses that phrase, that line from the movie, as a motivational phrase and line. So it was a wink and a nod to them. The problem is that in winking and nodding, because he is so unserious in so many ways, nobody knew that he was winking and nodding, that he was being tongue in cheek. And the other part is, throughout that entire presentation, that part of the presentation, he was being serious. So it was, yes, a wink and a nod, but it was also part of a serious prayer. So yeah, there's a whole lot going on with him in that moment, that because of his self-parody, you don't know what's legitimate and what's not.
Shelley, your thoughts again, if it's time to propaganda, listen to us. What did you see there?
Yeah. So I'm surprised that Emil went there, and I would say that my good brother engaged in just slightly 10 seconds of propaganda there.
Okay.
Because and Emil knows this to be true because he admits it. The group that adopted that prayer, quote unquote prayer, mantra, they're talking, whatever, their motivation speech, whatever you want to call it, is a group that rescues down people. This is their job. They go into enemy territory to get people. Okay. And so when the movie came out, they kind of lifted that pseudo religious scripture, turned it into kind of their words with it, right? To use a little bit of Sam Jackson's words and made it their thing. Okay. And so he was celebrating that group because they had just helped to rescue the downed pilot. And so it was serious. It was theirs. He was being very serious. Okay. The problem is, to Emil's point, I'm not saying this about Emil, but the problem is a CNN will take anything and do anything to make anybody look bad from this administration. Right. And so that's what happened here. That's exactly what happened here. They didn't know this group existed. Mm-hmm. They didn't do the research to see what their mantra was. Right. And so they just ran with it because everybody else did. And really, to be honest with you, and this is really the problem in our country, and this is really why, so many people voted for Trump 3 times, including myself, is because there's such an open hostility to the guy from the media. Emil is not in the media. Montoya, I mean, I am to a certain extent, but not really. I'm just an opinion guy, right? So we all have our opinions. Montoya, you're technically in the media because you have a podcast and you do an event and everything like that. But we're not the media per se, right? And so because the media is so anti-Trump every day, constantly, it's hard for people. It's hard. It's easy for people to say, you know what? I hate you, media, so I love him. So you get people that agree with everything he does, just like you have people that agree with everything he disagrees with everything he does. And so it's hard to have any kind of real, honest conversation.
Objectivity, yeah.
Right, about what's going on. And in this case, this was a prime example of the media just going out of its way to attack somebody or something that really was just a non-story, to be completely honest. You know?
Yeah, I see that there. Thank you for that clarity, because what happened was one of our viewers sent that to me. It's like, y'all got to talk about it. And I said, okay, you know, obviously love our watchers. So I said, we'll talk about it. So I led with it. And to your point, Shelley, just because of how it's clipped and because of Hegseth history up until this point, I assumed it to be a blunder. When you give the clarity that you just gave, this situation right here, I have to own, it's absolutely not what it appears to be.
It isn't.
Isn't at all. Go ahead, Emil.
But see, Montoya, this is the problem with this administration. When he's doing something tongue-in-cheek, which is what he was doing, he was absolutely being tongue-in-cheek. You don't know it because the other stuff they do that is serious seems like it's tongue-in-cheek.
No, that's weird. I'm admitting that I fell for it, but I think Shelley's making the bigger point here, and I agree with Shelley as the bigger point, that it's always going to be propped up like that. So
for sure.
So that becomes the bigger issue. To Shelley's point, the bigger issue becomes in the sense that our media historically has tried to serve as some type of watchdog. We've all agreed since we started the show over a year ago, the media is out the door on being the watchdog that it rightfully used to serve, and it's why we were able to get Nixon get out of office, when the media specifically at that time served as the watchdog that it's supposed to inside of our republic, and it no longer is too biased. All media is too biased, whether it's all the way left or whether it's all the way right.
Exactly right.
Yeah,
and that becomes a problem in our country.
Yes.
It really does. And they're not doing it necessarily. I would honestly say that I don't think CNN is. I think CNN is doing it partially because they believe it, right? But I think Fox News is partially doing it because they believe it on the other side. But I think really why they're both doing it is because they believe it's a good business decision.
Yeah, that's the bigger reason, which loses the watchdog effect. That's where the watchdog effect. And whatever I always said, I'll just say this and we'll move to the next cut, as much as I say I was going to get through the cuts. But I've always pinpointed this one point personally. When I already don't watch too much TV anyway. Yeah, and everybody that knows me knows I hardly watch any TV. But I remember one day being in the gym years ago, and at this very moment, this is when I said I'm completely out on the news. And it was literally when Tiger Woods got in his first accident back when he was cheating on his lady or whatever, and that issue or whatever. And it was leading the news on CNN. And I was like, there was a time where this type of thing, but it wasn't that the story itself was leading the news. What happened was someone had made a meme about it on social media, and CNN was actually leading with the meme.
Right.
And at that point, I'm running on the treadmill going, how can I ever watch the news again?
Right. And that's the problem. When you support someone so much that they can do no wrong, and you hate someone so much where they can do nothing right, the only people that suffer in that scenario are the American people. That's truly what it is. When you go back to Vietnam, many pundits say that we lost in Vietnam because the press, the media turned on the military, right? This is they'll say this, right? That the American people, because they saw what was going on, started to get frustrated with the war and started to put pressure on ending the war. And so many of them say that had we stuck it out, we would have won the Vietnam War, right? Okay, so that's a point,
a
theory, right? The problem with that theory is that person is openly admitting, whoever says that, and I've heard many particularly neocons say that, that person is openly admitting that you must lie to the American people, the people that you're actually waging war in the name of. And so that's what's happening here. And so, whether you agree with Iran, not whatever, that take that out of it, whether you're Republican or Democrat, take that out of it. The fact of the matter is, my tax dollars are going towards waging the war. You're waging it in my name because then I'm an American citizen. So you need to tell me everything that's going on. Now, if it's super top secret, if you're getting ready to attack somebody and you don't want to tell it, I get that.
Yeah, of course.
But if you do attack somebody and you have massive casualties, you have to tell me.
Yeah, period.
And if you're victim, if you won, but you can't only tell me the good news, and you can't lie to me, and then tell me because I have to lie to you so we can win the war. No, that's that's bogus.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go through keep running through these cuts because I highlighted one of the promotions I led into was I came across this as I was doing I saw this particular clip and I did some research after this clip, but it also came across my timeline was the reminders of how divisive people felt Obama was during his presidency. And so I wanted to have, if you will, some dialogue about how Obama's looked at and what we're experiencing right now with people deciding what Trump is doing. And so let me share a few words with you before I actually play this clip, because I was surprised to find this out. I guess this happened at the end of last year and we never covered it, but both of y'all probably already know about it, but I was unaware, for example, that President Trump had put these plaques under the various presidents' name at the White House. And here's something that he put under, with the administration, I guess I should say, put under Barack Obama. It says Barack Hussein Obama was the first Black president, a community organizer, one-term senator from Illinois, and one of the most divisive political figures in American history. As president, he passed the highly ineffective Unaffordable Care Act, resulting in his party losing control of both houses of Congress and the election of the largest House Republican majority since 1946. He presided over a stagnant economy, approved the terrible Iran nuclear deal, and signed the one-sided Paris Climate Accords, both of which were later terminated by President Donald J. Trump. We know he is petty. This seems insane to me personally. I just found out about it, but I wanted to share what the plaque said to kind of lead into the question I asked today: who was the most divisive president between the two? Because I had forgotten, as I said, as I was doing the research for this show, that's how Obama was looked at. I remembered it once I saw it again, and that's what said, you know what? Let me ask Emil and Shelley, what are their thoughts on this divisiveness based on the president themselves? Shelley, we'll start with you.
The whole Obama was the most divisive president. If there was ever a hold on.
We may have lost him for a second.
Yeah, looks that way.
If we did, you're back. Go ahead.
If there was ever a piece of propaganda that spread like wildfire in this country, it's that statement.
Mm-hmm.
Every president that we've ever had at some point is divisive. Well, at the start is divisive. And the reason for that is because usually a little less than half the country didn't vote for him. So, so the idea of a presidential election, any election for that matter, but especially a presidential election, is divisive from its start, because you have a choice of two people. And so that's already dividing the people up between candidate A and candidate B. The idea that you would say President Obama was the most divisive president when the Fox News and conservative media and the whole conservative atmosphere of media went after him for several days over a tan suit it boggles my mind. But there's two things that conservatives say that I push back on consistently. One is the Democrats were the party of the KKK, and that remains to today, right? And the other one is that statement that Obama was the most divisive president. I just think it's a ridiculous, just shouting talking point that people throw out there that's just utterly stupid. And it's one of those phrases that when someone says it, I kind of know immediately who I'm talking to. You know what I mean? Like, Emil, you see that on your side as well, right? You have Democrats that say things and you're like, okay, I kind of know what I'm not going to walk away, but I kind of know the mentality of who I'm talking to right now.
Yeah. Emil, any of your thoughts? I'm going to continue this conversation, but I want to get your initial response because I got more clips talking about, in a sense, the switch from Obama to Trump, because I also highlighted it in the promotions. Did Obama lead to Trump per se? But let me get your response before I play this next cut.
First, let me just say, we got to ask the question, what does divisive mean? Because we hear this word all the time, and we always say, oh, America's divided, America's divided. America was divided in the 60s when there were white people only water fountains versus colored water fountains. Like, that was a level of division we haven't seen ever since those kinds of things were gone. We had segregated schools up until the 50s, and through the 70s, we had to bus people to break the segregation. That's a level of divisiveness. So when we say divisive, what do we mean? Because in the modern era, I'm not sure that we are using that word except for propaganda. Because when we say divisive, we're certainly not seeing that kind of division. What we are seeing is a political division. And that's because, as Shelley pointed out, people take sides in their respective camps. So when you say Obama was divisive or Trump was divisive, here's what I'm going to ask in response to that. What policy did they create that caused division? Because what you're talking about is a popular culture reaction to the president. And that popular culture reaction does not necessarily manifest in policy. When it manifests in policy, let's have that discussion. So I can go back to policy and I can say, there's a divisiveness from Obama through policy in this way. We can call it the Affordable Care Act. We can talk about the things he did socially. Then we can talk about the divisiveness of Trump and look at the things he's done in policy. And now we have the distinction. And what I want people to do in this conversation is stop thinking about popular culture. I like this guy, therefore he's not divisive. I don't like this guy, therefore he is. And ask themselves, which policies are driving a wedge between the American people?
Nah, good stuff. Speaking of policy, this was, again, I found this clip and had planned to play it. And I didn't at the time know I was even going to have this dialogue today. But I want to go here because I have something I want to ask Shelley after this. So let me play this cut and see what y'all have to say about this. This is from the Defiant Lawyer.
Some black people constantly attack Obama with this false argument that he did nothing for black people. The truth of the matter is, Obama saved more black lives than any president in American history, hands down. And I'll explain. One specific criticism of Obama is he should not have focused on health care. Instead, he should have focused on either reparations or black-on-black crime. The premise of that argument is factually incorrect. Black-on-black crime is not more urgent than affordable health care for black people. That is, if saving black lives truly matter. Let's look at what kills the most black people in America. And it's not black-on-black crime. It's these 10 things: heart disease, cancer, accidents, strokes, COVID, diabetes, assault, chronic lower respiratory disease, Alzheimer's, kidney disease. And 7 of these are chronic health diseases. 3 of the top 4 are heart disease, cancer, and strokes. Combined, these chronic diseases cause over 60% of black deaths, whereas homicide and black-on-black crime causes 3%. So if our goal is to save black lives, we must focus on what kills the most black people, which again is chronic diseases. So that brings me to the Affordable Care Act. Now, before the ACA, about 1 in 5 black Americans had no health insurance. After the ACA, that dropped to about 1 in 10 black people. The ACA resulted in millions of blacks gaining access to doctors, medication, and preventive care. That fact is confirmed by the U.S. Census Bureau and the Kaiser Family Foundation. Now, let's connect the dots. Let's bring the dots together. If chronic diseases are plaguing millions of blacks, they will require ongoing care. So if there's no insurance, that means there are no checkups, no medication, no early detection, no disease management, and all of that leads to death. The CDC shows that access to care improves outcomes for these exact conditions. So when Obama used his political capital to expand health care for Medicaid, which disproportionately affected Black Americans, Black deaths started trending down. And this is not dismissing Black-on-Black crime. Black-on-Black crime matters, and so do reparations. But the data is clear. The lack of affordable health care causes far more Black deaths than homicide. And as always, stay woke.
So, Emil, it's your turn, so I'm gonna go ahead and let you go first. But here's what stands out to me is because we're at the point where people are missing health insurance. Like that's something that's touching my family, just due to the current times. So it's like when the Divine lawyer says, "Let's connect the dots." So not only talking about Obama, but I thought it was a good conversation to have because we're at a period where people are missing health insurance because it's so expensive. Like I said, again, this is near and dear to something happening in my family right now. But your thoughts in reference to that old adage of Obama did nothing for Black people. Obviously, he focused on one aspect when it came to the ACA. But that's something that is always said and obviously comes up if we're going to start talking about Obama versus Trump as part of this conversation. So your thoughts, Emil, then I'll go to Shelley.
This is a popular talking point in barbershops, or at least it was. It's probably not so much now. But the reason why I hear this and kind of smirk is because a lot of people were expecting Malcolm X or a Martin King figure to enter into the White House and be militant with a fist pump and all power to all people. And that's not who he was. That's not how he campaigned. Those aren't the promises he made. So I always look at what promises did he make? And the promises he made are the promises he mostly kept. And he did fail. And he did, some people say he lied. I don't say he lied. I say he tried and he failed. But most of the time, what you see is if you measure him against the promises he made, you'll find out that he was really working on working class issues. And he considers Black working class people as part of the working class. This is one of the problems with modern political discourse that is we just run right by it. Working class includes Hispanic people. Working class includes Black people. Working class includes Asian and Pacific Islander people. Those are working class people too, but it's code for white middle class people when you hear it in the popular culture and the popular media reference. So what he was doing was actually addressing all of the people in the middle class with his policies, which did a lot for Black people, because if you consider them as part of the working class and you aim your policies at all of those people, you tend to see all of those people elevate. And one of the issues in Obama's administration was as we've talked about many times on the show, the Democrats rarely market their wins for Black people to the general Democratic audience. They don't do that. So there are a lot of wins that happen under the radar, not because he didn't do them, but because the Democratic machine doesn't like to talk about those wins on behalf of Black people because they don't like the backlash that comes from non-Black people.
No, it makes sense. We got one comment that says Obama did absolutely nothing for Blacks, but he did like the White House with the gay flag. All right, Shelley, real quick before you go, brother, I wanted to add a couple of thoughts again, because some of the dialogue I also mentioned, did Obama get us Trump, if you will? So when I saw this clip, I just went down a little quick rabbit hole objectively as best as I could. And here's what we left with Obama and then turned to Trump after Obama was at the time able to get us the lowest unemployment that we had, right? The economy was booming after Obama. He did increase the debt, which unfortunately a lot of presidents haven't done that. And graduation rates reached the highest in history for high school under Obama. Actually increased graduation rates significantly for Hispanics and Blacks under the time. Dropout rates dropped significantly. And we know, even though the ACA was not perfect, it got a lot of people on healthcare, which the defiant lawyer just pointed out. So what were we switching to? If I could ask, what was wrong? What were we switching to? And again, that was just me doing a little objective, like what? I literally was like, what was good, what was bad? I just looked these things up, and the things I just came up with were where we were at that time. Why was it so bad? And we needed to turn to Trump based on the track record I just laid out. Shelley, what do you recall at that time?
Let me tell you. First of all, let's do this. Let's take the race out of it, right? Let's take it out for a second. Every president brings in the next president. In other words, every president, especially a two-term president, is responsible for the next president, because it's always usually a reaction against what was done over two terms. Right. What I've always criticized Obama for was one thing and one thing only. I always felt that his entirety of his foreign policy was Bush 2.0. That's all I've ever disagreed with him on. I always felt that Obamacare was always supposed to be a start to fixing healthcare in this country. One thing I could say that, like, well, I'm all over the place. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
But one thing I could say, Republicans are masters at talking to their base in terms that they can understand. One thing Democrats are horrible at is talking to their base in terms that they can understand. And I think the problem with Obamacare with the Democrats is that they positioned Obamacare as remember, Obamacare was a slight that the Republicans came up with to make Obamacare bad. Democrats embraced it and, called it that as well. But the point I'm making is that they positioned this healthcare attempt at starting to fix it. They positioned it as the end all be all, and not as something that was come in, adjust, and keep tweaking as you go along. Republicans were masterful at painting it as just the most horrible thing ever, yet it passed, I believe, 2010, 2009, 2010, maybe my years are off, but it passed in his first term. I do know that, right, right. Emil? Yep. Yeah, right. So it passed in his first term. So that's almost 20 years ago, almost. And Republicans haven't done anything to change it, eradicate it, take it away, or anything. So that tells you that it wasn't the most horrible thing ever, because no one on the Republican side is even willing, Trump included, to get rid of it. So, so it can't be that bad. You know what I mean? So,
but they talk trash about it, though.
But that's what he just said. He just said they're masterful at the messaging.
The messaging. Yeah. Right. So if you hate something so badly, why wouldn't you get rid of it? But you can't, because too many people have it. And with the random person that talks about my health care went up, right? How do you, if you did not have health care before, your health care didn't go up. You're just paying now, right? And if you did have health care before and you're paying through a private system, then you could keep that private system if it was less than what Obamacare was. So when people talk about my health care going up, that wasn't a function of Obamacare. That was a function of your own work employee health care going up, right? And so all of that being aside, the most divisive president ever is a ridiculous statement. It's a silly statement. That clip, I don't know it makes sense what the guy was saying. I think that, to your point, I think Obama on Montoya, I think the issue becomes we can argue about Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey. We can argue as leaders these men were. But these men were leaders of an organization specifically designed to help a specific group of people. Obama was elected by a number of everybody. Right. Well, whoever voted for him, he's elected to serve everybody. One of the things I had a criticism of his foreign policy, but the other criticism I also had in the second term, if I'm president of the United States and the right is coming after me, basically in every way except calling me the N-word outright, I'm going to be the black president and I'm going to drop black shit. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, I'm not going to do it with comment at the White House or concerts. I'm going to do it in real policy. You know what I mean? I'm going to drop real policy and do real things.
That's exactly how I felt, especially when I look at his second term. At some point, you just got to drop the mask and say, okay, enough is enough. And I think where he failed wasn't like he failed black people. It was that he did not let his inner gangster out in a time when it was most needed. And I thought he had a little more dog in him in that, especially as a second term president. I thought he should have shown a little bit of more of that dog in him in the ways that he could have. So maybe that is probably a more fair criticism than whether he was divisive or not.
Yeah, maybe having to have, in a sense, be the ultimate statesman to even get an opportunity at the position. Maybe that's not in him. And I'm not defending. I'm just talking about objectively. Once you play this role for so long, even if you had that in you, you might not be good at it if you hadn't practiced it in a while. I'm just talking about from an objective, just talking about what y'all are talking about standpoint. All right, let me go to this next. We want to go to this next clip because this is something, Emil, you talked about with Shelly on the show some months ago. So this clip, y'all will be reminded of it, and I definitely want to get y'all opinions. Shelly, you'll start the first response to this. But I recall Emil at the time being just as vehement as this guy is right here talking about the Iran deal that Obama created. And so, again, we'll let Shelly respond first.
This is the agreement that President Obama's Secretary of State, John Kerry, got Iran to sign, a promise to, under no circumstances, ever seek, acquire, or develop any nuclear weapons. 5 other countries, China, France, Germany, Russia, the United Kingdom, joined that negotiation to convince Iran to sign this deal. Iran agreed to allow hundreds of inspectors into the country to constantly monitor their activity to be sure that Iran was never developing a nuclear weapon. And the agreement was working. There was not a shred of evidence to be found anywhere by anyone, including Israeli intelligence, that Iran in any way violated their agreement with President Obama and 5 other countries involved. And so Donald Trump should be able to get the Iranians to put in writing the same thing they put in writing 11 years ago. But no one in the news media should treat that as some kind of breakthrough because Donald Trump, in the single stupidest diplomatic action in American history, just ripped up that towering diplomatic achievement by Secretary of State John Kerry and President Obama and the other participating countries in that negotiation, all of whom worked very hard for years to convince Iran to never develop nuclear weapons and put that promise in writing. Donald Trump just ripped it up. That agreement, that successful agreement, allowed monitors from all of those countries into Iran to study everything that Iran was doing every day and make sure Iran was not developing nuclear weapons. When Donald Trump ripped up that agreement, all of those inspectors were immediately thrown out of Iran, thrown out of the country. Now, let's see how many inspectors Donald Trump gets back into Iran. And don't be surprised if it is 0. Donald Trump, who could not successfully negotiate an agreement to buy the silence of porn star Stormy Daniels, is now trying to get Iran to agree to what it agreed to 11 years ago. And while they're at it, please reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran had never closed before during any other presidency and any other conflict. It took Donald Trump to achieve the closure of the Strait of Hormuz in Iran, and now Donald Trump will consider it a negotiating triumph if Iran simply reopens it. So Donald Trump's incompetent negotiators are negotiating tonight for the world as it existed before Donald Trump became president the first time. And that buffoon tore up that agreement.
You're on mute again, Montoya.
So obviously, there's a lot of propaganda just in the anger, if you will. But I would say, outside of saying buffoonery and calling it the stupidest deal in the world, Emil, I think he watched your show because he said everything you said without the additional BS, right? So, Shelley, I'll start with you. Just your thoughts. That guy's name is, I forgot his name, but I think it's the last word is the name of that show, to give credit. But yeah, Shelley, your thoughts about the actual actions despite his obviously hate for Trump, if you will.
I think that he's right to a certain degree. Look, it's clear that if part of your foreign policy chops, if you will, or if part of your decision making in foreign policy is related to how much you hate the other guy or the guy before you, it's clear that's going to be an issue. All deals are problematic by definition of them having to have a win-win to complete the deal. So, you cut a deal with somebody in business, your partner could say to you, that was a horrible deal because you gave up something. Well, if you didn't give up something, you wouldn't have gotten a deal. So we can all point to deals, peace agreements, non-proliferation agreements as a problem if you want to lift out some of the portions of it. But it goes back to what we said in the beginning, Montoya and Emil. If everybody on one side is set up to attack the other side and everybody on the other side is set up to simply attack the other side, then where is the real truth of the matter? Was it a bad thing to blow up that peace deal with Iran? Absolutely it was. Was it a good idea to work through it and tweak it? Yes, that's what an adult would have done. But that's not what we're not dealing with serious people anymore. And I'm not saying it's all the Republicans. I'm saying it's everybody. We're not dealing with serious people. And the destruction of this.
Can I ask you this, Shelley?
Yeah.
What you're saying right now, I would offer that part, what you're saying now, can be directed at Trump in reference to how there's a level of unseriousness in the actual
That's
position.
what I started. That's why I started with, if your foreign policy or your domestic policy is simply, I hate the last guy, so I'm going to change everything,
okay, gotcha.
Whether it worked or not. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay. So that's why, it's, and we're dealing, I just saw, Democrats right now, according to some of the polling, a generic congressional Democrat ballot beats a conservative generic a Republican congressional generic ballot by like 5 or 6 points. At the way things are going right now, that number should be in the 20s, right? And it's only 5 or 6 points. And, my point is, even the Democrats are not serious. The things that they're talking about, Spamberger, they're talking about moving elections to just a national number. A public, what do you call it? What do you call it, Emil? Where you just count the votes, no electoral college.
Oh yeah, that's just a popular vote.
Popular vote, right? They're moving towards that, which may be popular with Democrats, but it's only popular with activists inside the Beltway Democrats. Right. Most people don't care about that. They're like, yo, how you gonna bring down taxes? If I vote for you, you're gonna bring down my prices. You're going to fix the schools. You're going to give me health care, like that kind of stuff. So there's so many unserious things out there that it's frustrating for us, the voters, And then after Lawrence, I think Lawrence O'Donnell talked about that when he first did it. Well, look at where we are now. I talked about it on my show. Republicans dragged Obama for not doing anything after Syria crossed his own red line. And now Trump keeps backing down on his threats to Iran. And it's just, everyone is not serious. No one is, No one is caring about looking. I'm arguing with people on my Facebook page who come on here and now calling me a Democrat. One lady said that my strings are being pulled to disagree with the president and I become deranged. And I'm like, well, I was told my strings were being pulled when I loved the president. So, which one is it? Is it bad now? You know what I mean? It's just, we're not dealing with serious people. And that's in every level, because those people that are coming at me, like, there are people calling me a Democrat now because I disagree with the president.
I saw that
Right. So now, okay. So let's say I'm a Democrat now. Let's say that to be true, right? Then those people have votes just like you and I. Their votes count the same. And these people do not see anything wrong with anything going on since 2025. January 20th of 2025, nothing. There's nothing they disagree with. And I mean, hell, we just had a conversation about Obama. I voted for Obama twice. I still disagree with him. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't think he was a cult figure. I still disagree with things. And it's just baffling to me, man, that we're living in this world today where you literally cannot disagree, because Democrats had the same problem with Obama. A lot of African Americans came out, was saying he didn't do anything for black people. And Democrats were like, you can't disagree. You can't turn on Obama. You know what I mean? We'll throw you out the club.
That was definitely.
And so this is what happens. And it's destructive to the country as a whole.
Yeah. And that's why we're attempting to be here, to elevate the consciousness so that you're not just falling for the propaganda or just being simply that one-sided. We're not trying to even get you to agree with what we're saying, but we are going to challenge you to think about what's happening politically. And also at times, and we've been fortunate, we've talked about special elections on this show. It's people say, hey, I didn't even know to go vote till I saw your show. So little things like that. So we're trying to have you focus ultimately locally more so than the president, but obviously the president drives the news. So we talk about the president as well. All right. So let me go to, we mentioned Joe Rogan being out. So this is not Joe Rogan himself, but this guy, name is, let me try to give his credit. I don't see his name in my clip. Sorry. I want to give him his credit. But he talks about Rogan being out after being an endorser of Trump. And so what I thought was, is there a bigger question of where we're at as a country? But let's start with this clip, and Emil will let you respond first.
Did you see Rogan recently say that he is politically homeless? I tweeted about it. I couldn't believe it. He will never take responsibility for the role he played in all of this. Guys, if you have on many of the leading lights of the Epstein class, if you have on Peter Thiel, if you have on Mark Andreessen, Elon Musk, and I mean, the endless array of names, including but not limited to Donald Trump himself. And then after a podcast with Elon Musk, you make an explicit, and he called it in his own words, an endorsement of Trump. My brother in Christ, the last motherfucking thing you are is politically homeless. The having political regret is not the same thing as being politically homeless. And people keep writing me about this, being like, hey, look, you've made mistakes and you've changed your opinion on things. Why can't others? They can. But there's two things about this. Number one, this is Trump's second term. Y'all got a good look at him and then thought, oh, I want more of this. Dumbass decision. Oh, I didn't know he was going to do this. No. You didn't listen to the warnings he was going to be like. All the media I covered. None of this is fucking surprising. To say nothing of Project 2025 laying out most of this, certainly domestically. This was well told by left-wing media. No. The little media bubble you're in didn't tell you that, but it was being told. So this is the second go-round with this motherfucker. The second go-round after he tried to steal a presidential election. And people were like, I didn't know he was going to do this. Wow. Maybe you're just not that smart. Maybe that's the problem. I saw Tim Dillon be like, oh, I fell for the Iraq war too. Tim, maybe you should ask yourself why you keep falling for right-wing scams, buddy. I think that might be the issue. Rather than, oh, I didn't know he was going to do this. You didn't want to know. You didn't want to listen.
Actually, I'm going to throw this at Shelley, because if you recall last week, I highlighted some of what this guy was saying at the end to Leo. I was saying, how were we not aware? How were you not aware based on things that were being propagated by the president coming into the election? And I remember you and I, Shelley, had some dialogue, for example, about Project 2025. And, and I highlighted, like, this stuff gets said, but not necessarily you personally, but a lot of people were like, oh, that's just Trump. He doesn't mean it. And I'm sitting, so when certain things started happening, and you mentioned this last week, Emil, that there are lockstep things that came out of Project 2025 that we're watching play out now. And you and I both said we were not surprised because we did hear enough of it. And I guess we took it serious, but some didn't. So how do you answer for that, if you will, Shelley? Because again, I remember having some of those dialogues with you personally.
So, yeah, first of all, to that guy's point, the reason why so many of us went again in because remember, many of us went again in 2020. When I say us, I mean the people he's talking about, not suburban moms or groups that went for Biden, right? And then came back because of the economy, right? So the reason why many of us went again in 2024 is because 2016 to 2020, we did well. Like, taking out just, I don't like this, I don't like that, we did well in 2020 to 2020. 2017 to 2020. I know I made some of the most money in my life, in my career, under those years of Trump. I did well. There was progress. I saw African-American stuff being done. To our point we just made about Obama not bringing out his inner gangster, I saw Trump doing things specifically for Black people and saying it was specifically for Black people, not hiding behind some kind of, talking point. And so 2017 to 2020, I was happy. That's why I came back. I came back in 2020. He lost. I came back in 2024.
Okay.
What this guy is not saying is that everything that he's telling me that he's doing now, right? He didn't tell me he was going to do it during the election of 2024. He didn't show me he was going to do it in his first term. Now, the Democrats might have said, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. Well, again, I've got to believe what you're saying, right? But I don't think any of us did not see it. Those were not concerns to us. The concerns to us was cutting spending, bringing down the deficit, bringing down the prices, and no new wars. On a foreign policy tip, we were, hey, if you want to call it non-interventionists, we were all non-interventionists. Yeah, we don't want to go over there and do nothing, do anything. If somebody comes here and attacks us, we're going to defend ourselves. But going someplace else in a foreign adventure, no bueno. And that was a coalition that built around that. Now, if you tell me you're not going to do that, and then you do it, I was lied to. I'm not stupid. I was lied to, especially when I have a first term where you never did anything like that. So, this guy reminds me of the people on the right that jumped up and down and buried everybody on the left who said Trump was going to lose the first time. And it's just gloating for the sake of gloating. But I don't regret my vote because I had a choice between Obama and Kamala. And she was part of the administration that did a lot of things wrong. Most importantly, open up the borders and things and that kind of stuff. So I wasn't going to vote for her, but I don't regret my vote in Trump. But I will certainly be increasingly an agitator to do when this administration does the things that you said explicitly you would not do. And you're doing them now. So I'm going to turn on you. And if my turning on you hurts the Republican Party, then I hope it teaches anybody coming down the pike a lesson. Don't go against what you told me you're going to do, because we'll bury you in the midterms or in 2028.
Okay. All right, Emil, I'm going to shoot to you. But this is what I processed from you, Shelley. I would just add, because I see the logic makes sense to me. You're like, okay, this is what I got the first time. And so I'm thinking I'm going to get that again. And he told me he would do this. I would just highlight that this time around, it was also highlighted that he would do some of these things that have caused a lot of issues as well. Like, that was the additional part of the rhetoric that I would say y'all were dismissive of, but it was said too, if that makes sense. Does that make sense, Shelley? Like some of the issues we're having now, they were said as well.
Yes, absolutely. 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 I'll be honest with you. I know Heritage Foundation. I know what they've talked about. To be honest with you, for instance, there's a lawsuit, a guy just waged about him being fired from the government, federal government, because he was black, right? And they said like 75% of the employees fired from the government during Doge have been African American. Therefore, it's a racial discrimination suit. Well, okay, I'm not sure. Again, this could be naivete. It could be me trying to protect my mental from believing something, but I don't believe it was necessarily you got fired because you were black. It's that most federal government employees are African American, because they're
most, but we are overrepresented disproportionately. So we are
right.
Yes, we're not the most though. Just
most right, but we're overrepresented.
So if you do what you're saying.
Yeah. So if you cut, you're gonna cut most of us because we're overrepresented, right? But my point is, I never thought, to be honest with you, and maybe it's naive, but I never thought when you say cut government spending that anybody would actually cut almost 30% of the federal government workers. Because I never thought that was even possible to continue functioning as a government. But what we are seeing, to the credit of Doge, of course it impacts people, but people get fired every day from corporations, so why should it be any different? But to the credit is that government was bloated. You did have people being hired. We see it in cities all the time. We see it in the city of Atlanta. A guy wins the mayorship. You have people already working there from the last person. So you got to give your people jobs. So bloat just goes on bloat. Same thing with the state government. You got Nathan Deal and then Sonny Perdue and then Brian Kemp wins. Well, Sonny Perdue's people are working there. Brian Kemp's people got to get jobs. And it just continues on and on. So, I understand it, but my point is, I don't agree with the guy calling us stupid. I don't think that's the case. That's what I disagree with.
No, I understand that. All right, for the sake of time, Emil, I'm gonna do this cut. I want to jump to this cut because again, I love clowning the meritless people in the administration. And I've openly admitted my bias on this show is against RFK Jr. I think he's horrible. Shelley loves him to death. But this sister is grilling him, which I think is on a real life issue that also was part of Project 2025 that is actually affecting our community. So I definitely want to hear y'all thoughts on that. And then I'll let y'all get out of here if y'all got to go. But that's why I'm jumping to this clip, because it's actually important. As much as I'm clowning him, I think it's an important issue.
Do you think the federal government should be paying for DEI?
I think the federal government has a vested interest in ensuring that its citizens survive childbirth.
Well, we are meeting that obligation.
We are not. Your agency told programs to remove a list of nearly 200 words and phrases from their funding applications, including the word black. Do you have an idea of how we could solve the black maternal mortality crisis if we can't say black?
President Trump is trying to end division in this country. That's what DEI did. It divided people. It polarized people.
No. We're talking about healthcare.
I'm calling about DEI.
We're talking about healthcare.
Yeah.
Disparities. So what we're asking is if you attack DE&I and then we have a crisis that impacts one population over another, but you cannot direct specific spending or research or interventions to that population, how do you solve the problem?
Do you think the federal government should be paying for DEI?
I think the federal government has a vested interest in ensuring that its citizens survive childbirth.
Well, we are meeting that obligation.
We are not.
Oh, that I can explain to you how we are.
You have not done so far. But also I would say that, we can improve healthcare for everybody at the same time as helping the people who are most likely to die.
Yeah, we're last place in developed countries for Black women getting off and off the table after pregnancy. Like we're last place of all developed countries. We're still ahead of the undeveloped countries, but we're in last place. It's a real issue that we haven't figured out as a country, and now there's no funds directed at trying to figure out why the hell this is happening. That's a real issue to me. That's a real issue.
You're really asking a really hard question, and that is, by removing the historical context of what is happening to Black people in America and just saying, because today magically we're all Americans, you are overlooking hundreds of years of history that culminate in something like Black maternal mortality. You're looking at how infant mortality is also affected by that very same structure. This is not new. This is not something that is, a buzzword. These are things that have historical remnants that affect us in 2026. Doctors are still learning, nurses are still learning that Black people have thicker skin than white people, that Black people can tolerate more pain without painkillers than white people. We're still tolerating this going on in medical school and nursing schools right now. Those myths are affecting the ability for Black people to get the care they need. And you cannot say, well, we're just going to magically wipe away DEI, and therefore all of these health disparities are going to also go away. That's not how history or culture or healthcare work. There is a specific population with a specific need that needs to be addressed, and you cannot address that need if you cannot say the word that describes that population. Now, we've talked about DEI in our podcast before. We know how it's been used, misused, abused, and turned into all kinds of culture wars. But when it comes to healthcare, it's very, very basic. There is a population that suffers in the medical establishment more because of its population descriptor Black, not because of something they did or didn't do, but because they're Black. And we have tons of studies from the right and the left and the center, scientific, sociological, you name it, that prove it. So now it's not a matter of if the evidence is there, it's what we're going to do about it. And magically wiping away DEI does not solve that problem.
And one last thing, and I'll get your thoughts, Shelley. One last thing, this is one of the few issues that is consistent across socioeconomics. Like a lot of issues that we may look at, if you will, that are disparaging towards Blacks and towards, whites and other demographics, sometimes it's just more of us are poor. So those are the situations in a lot of situations. When it comes to maternal death of Black women, it's actually consistent via socioeconomic status. So there's something else that needs to be found. So this is a real issue where we've been hurt because DEI, as I've always consistently said, was misnomered and misused by this administration. And again, people don't take something away unless it's effective. But people go, oh, it's okay, we don't need it. Like, why did they take it away if it wasn't effective? Your thoughts, Shelley, and I'll let you get up out of here. I know you got to, thank you for your time with us, though.
Robert F. Kennedy, I interviewed him personally. I talked to him, sat across from him for almost 2 hours. The guy is not in any way, shape, or form can even become close to being called any kind of racist. Let's start.
Neither
no, I'm not saying you.
When I haven't said
no. I know. I didn't say you did.
I don't want to start there because that's not got nothing to do with this real life outcome. Because this administration took away DEI. So him being racist, I don't use that shit. I don't use that about people.
I didn't say that. I was talking to the audience, right? Like, let's because it's a sister, it's this guy. So and we're talking about DEI. This is my point of saying that what I just said. The problem here is that he knows the answer was yes. There's no reason to remove the race if it's research, if it's a program that's addressing a certain group that's being disproportionately affected. That's not what we're talking about here. Maybe that shouldn't happen. He's smart enough to know that's the answer. But in the world that we live now, he also recognizes the political aspects of what's going on, right? But he's smart enough to know, ma'am, yes, you're right. If we're talking about infant maternal mortality and it's disproportionately affecting Black people, Black women, then yes, we should have it should be left in there. Hey, we're looking for grants. I mean, we're looking to give grants to programs that help alleviate deaths of Black women during childbirth. So yes, of course, we need to put the color in there. Now, the world we live in should be a world where she's able to say that point. He's able to say, yes, it should remain for those specific research projects designed for those specific groups of people. But we should not have in the same grant bill for medical procedures, Black transgender celebration at this for LGBT month or Pride month. There's a conflation of these things. And I think that's the problem that exists in our country. He knows what she's saying is absolutely right. And he should be able to answer it by saying, yes, it should remain there, but it shouldn't remain there for other things that are non-research oriented for a specific group of people. And then that's the problem when you say, get rid of DEI, because now to her point at the end, does that make sense what I just said?
Yeah, you can understand why I don't trust it coming from that bastard, because you've met him, this guy can't even read a damn simple study. I can't even read a simple study. I do it because I enjoy it. That's how I know he can't do it.
I think he's like a lot of us.
I don't trust him.
Well, I mean, that's fine. I mean, saying you don't trust him is like calling him a racist, right?
Look, Shelly, the problem is
I just see
the public persona, right? I don't see the person that you interviewed. I don't get a chance to have that insight and have lunch with him and do the back and forth over emails and all that kind of stuff. So I have to go by what he says as public policy and public statements. And
right,
the problem is his public policy and public statements look very much like they're discriminating against Black people at times. I can't stop that. If he wants to say something different, he has to put that shit in policy. He can't just say, oh, well, I don't mean it that way. Those outcomes are going to have generational effects on a certain population. So let's be very, very comfortable admitting that if his policies end up hurting Black people, it's a racist policy. Even if he's a very genuinely nice guy who's genuinely not racist, the end of the story is generations of Black people are going to be harmed, and that's racist. We don't have to say he is, but we can say the outcome of his policy decisions absolutely is.
Fair.
And I'll say this one last thing and real quick and let you finish. So, and I'll just still remind you, the guy that during his hearing said, hey, Black people respond better to vaccines based on a study in Poland. It wasn't even a study in Poland. It was done by a doctor named Poland, and he actually had the information he said completely wrong. So I don't know that he's that smart enough to know what you're telling me. He's smart enough to know the answer. I don't know that he is if he thinks a doctor that did the study name was Poland. I don't know that he's smart enough to know what you're talking about, Shelley.
Well, I do a radio show every night for 2 hours a night, 10 hours a week. And I can't tell you the number of times that I've misspoken on something. I can't tell you. And if you wanted to lift that out of the total context of what I was saying, you could say, oh, this guy's an idiot. So
his policies reflect that kind of understanding.
Hold on, let me finish. So my point is that I do know that when I was growing up, I didn't know one autistic kid. We had one kid in our neighborhood who was what we had called the R word at that time. We had one kid in the neighborhood. Everybody protected him. You know, we teased him a little bit, but we protected him.
A whole class of it when I grew up. Go ahead.
Right. I didn't know one kid with autism. Now I know dozens of families with a autistic child. And so I don't know if that's due to the vaccines. I don't know if it's due to increased study and more information about it.
Because yes, it is. That is what it is. Just so you know, that's what it is. There's plenty of research that tells.
Right. So that's what it is. Right. So that's fine. You could go with that. I will tell you this: when I meet a family with an autistic kid, I know everyone in my generation did not see those kids when we were coming up. So you don't need a study to tell me that a kid is autistic.
I'm in your generation and I saw those kids, Shelley. That's what
I didn't see them.
Toya's saying. We
Well,
saw
Well, we didn't see them.
Go
We
back
didn't-
in
but-
time
but-
and look at the symptoms called autism today. There are lots of kids who have those symptoms then that we didn't call autism then. Just because a kid didn't, you didn't know the definition that we used
No,
today.
what we called it, what we called it back then was ADHD, and we gave kids pharmaceuticals towards it. And those kids,
Not in my time. None of my kids were. None of the kids.
No, it
I
wasn't
knew
called
were on
ADHD in our time.
pharmaceuticals.
yeah, they did. They said short. They called it short attention span. Short attention span, hyperactivity, and they tried to give us medicine for it. They tried to give it to me when I was a kid, and my mother said, "No, you're not poisoning my child." So, and I remember the first time I saw Robert F. Kennedy, it was at the Fox Theater with the anti-vax movement, and the keynote speaker was Minister Farrakhan. And so I'm just simply telling you, you can't tell me, on the one hand, that a government that throughout 69 episodes, I've listened to you tell me you don't trust this government, you don't trust the medical establishment, you don't trust the politicians. You can't tell me that all of a sudden that when that government comes along and says, hey, look at this study, we need to vaccinate your kids, that all of a sudden the trust goes up.
You ain't talking about the 69 episodes on here. We haven't done that at all. You're projecting what other people say to you, Shelley.
No, I've been doing this show with y'all. I've been doing this show with y'all.
You ain't never heard me say what you just said.
Okay, well, I'm telling you.
You never heard me say what you just said.
I'm just simply telling you. I'm just simply telling you. For years, every single HHS secretary, every single surgeon general has done exactly what we've always done. Here comes a guy that says, you know what, maybe we should do things differently. That's fine. We can disagree. I disagree. I think in that clip that you played, he should have simply answered the question. Yes, ma'am, you're right. If we're going to go do grants or programs that specifically target a group of people, we should be able to put that group of people, that wording in the grant. Period. End of story. That should be the answer.
And I don't think he wants to. That's the history he's shown.
So then you just did call him a racist. So we're back to that. So like I said, he's not. You just did. You said I don't think he wants to.
Yeah, but I'm going based on the history of what he's been doing.
No.
Based on the reason why I'm telling you what it's based on, Shelley.
No, but
you can't tell me what
I'm telling you.
You can't tell me what I'm not basing it on.
I'm not saying that.
I'm basing it on what he's continuous. I'm basing it on his panel getting shut down.
Montoya,
when he tried to change the vaccine thing, his panel got shot down by the science. You wasn't on that show.
So Montoya, let me say this.
What Mill's saying based on his policy actions,
the reason why he can't say that is because the administration set the policy, and he works for the administration, just like every other HHS secretary before him. So that's why I said he should have been able, in a real world, he should have been able to say what we know to be true. If you got a program and you're granting money to a study of watching why black women have higher maternal mortality rates, you should be able to put the fucking word black in the program. That's fair. Anybody with common sense would understand that's legit. Now, on the other millions and tens of millions of dollars that go out on nonsensical stuff, should that be included? No, there should be two separate things. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I understand that's all you're saying. I want to also tell you, I'm not pulling a clip. I just told you about what happened during his hearing when he talked about.
I'm not saying you did.
Yeah, I'm about to make a point. You might listen to my point. My actual point is, I'm not going by an out of context clip. I'm going by a history of what I watched.
I understand that. I understand that.
What that man say, I just talked about that one time. That wasn't the first time he said that about black people responding different to vaccines. He just said it at a national hearing. That's not the first time JFK has said that dumb shit. I've been following this dude before that Farrakhan visit. I remember during that Farrakhan visit. I've been following RFK before that. I got a long history of watching this man misread and misinterpret stuff that's easy to read. And he actually misinterprets it all the time. This is not an out of context thing he said on the radio one time. He has a history of doing this, Shelley. That's what you're hearing me. That's why you keep thinking I'm in a moment. Oh, you're just calling him racist. No, I'm talking about a history of this man. That's why I don't have nothing to do with him, because he has consistently misinformed people. I watched him literally talk about somebody died of a COVID vaccine. He allowed that to get put on his page, get put on his page, and had to take it down when they found out what the real reason of the death was. But he actually allowed it to be put on his page. So this ain't like I say, I don't have nothing to do with him, but I got a long history of this guy telling people the wrong information. Emil, you still there, or did I lose you?
No, I'm still here. Here's the thing, though. I got to go because I have another appointment here shortly.
Yeah, we're done. I'm just, it's just like, he's just being dismissive of it.
I just want us to be very comfortable, like knowing that when we talk about this stuff, I ask everybody to look at the policy, look at the science, look at the original data to make their conclusions. Because what we're always seeing is somebody trying to spin it one way or another. But there's plenty of data that shows that the things that RFK Jr. specifically is advocating for are not backed by science. There's plenty of data that says that. So I don't even care about if it's DEI or not. I care that, does the science inform the policy? And right now, RFK is being very disingenuous when he says it does, and he's not using the data that's available to him to make better decisions.
Yeah. And what we have consistently done, just for the clarity for somebody that may just now be watching, we have not, as Shelley suggested, for 69 episodes, simply say we've distrusted the government. What we have done is issue specific. Emil's highlighted. Here's where the government has failed us medically. He's pointed out the times where he feels like there's been information where the government has failed us medically. He's also pointed out where the government has done well in the medical field. That's what we've consistently did on this show. So it was incorrect for Shelley to suggest, and he had to go. That's why he jumped off. But it was incorrect for him to suggest, because that's what he meets out publicly. When he's having those back forth, it's always these people say, well, I don't trust the government. And he's trying to put that on us. And we've always distinguished point by point, issue by issue. Sometimes the government fails us. Sometimes it does well based on the evidence. That's what we've consistently done. So I am pushing back against him labeling that 69 episodes we've had a blanket statement of distrust for the government. That's not what we've done on this show, and I don't accept him predicting. I know he goes through outside of us and trying to put it on our show. That's not fair, and he would have to own it if he was still here. All right, y'all, great show. We'll see y'all next week. Thank you, Emil, for the time.
All right. Thanks, brother. Peace.
If you're tired of the propaganda, listen to us. I'm going to play, if you're in, you don't have to be in Atlanta for this. I'm going to end with a commercial for something I do with my company, Mental Dialogue, as you see kind of up here in the corner, this corner right here. So this is politically conscious. We do it on my platform of Mental Dialogue, and we have a private podcast that we offer. So I'm going to end with this commercial and then end the show. All right, y'all. Hopefully see y'all next week. If you're interested in what you see, then go to the mentaldialogue.com website and be a part of our private podcast, which is known as Black Love Dialogue. So I'll end the show with this and see y'all next week. If you've been thinking about coming, this is your moment. Sunday, April 26, 8 p.m., Black Love Dialogue and Wine, a private podcast experience. Pour your wine and step into something real as we feature mental health advocate Chris James and behavioral therapist Marilyn Arduini as we discuss marriage, shadow work, and mental health without filters. No recording, just truth, connection, and grown folk conversations. If you're serious about love and building legacy, pull up.